saying being up here is absolutely amazing. Now I know how Felix feels. I might do a quick tune if you guys are ready. All right, so my name is Dan Sargent, and I've known Marco and Laurel. We've been good friends for a long time now. But of course, as with any friendship, it had to start somewhere. And so, with that in mind, the theme of my speech is going to be first impressions. Our society places great significance on first impressions. You only get one first impression. You don't get a second chance at first impressions. We all know the story. Malcolm Gladwell, famed writer, thinker, public speaker, wrote, "We don't know exactly where first impressions come from or what precisely they mean. So we usually don't appreciate their significance and fragility." I stand here today in front of Marco and Laurel, the newlywed couple, beautiful inside and out. And I scan the room of their beloved family and friends, who, by the way, look absolutely spectacular tonight. In fact, let's make some noise for such a stunning group. Give it up. I think we can do a little bit better than that. Come on, come on, come on. I stand here today and I look at everybody and I can't help but reflect on where and when it all began. After all, here we are at the Newport Blues Cafe in Newport. I met Marco Guy Paulselli 10 years ago on my very first trip to Newport, Rhode Island. And it was on that trip where I was introduced to a wild bunch of guys. And to be quite honest, I thought Marco was the craziest of them all. He was a freewheeling bartender with shoulder-length hair. He would rip his shirt off and mount the bar without blinking an eye. If I have to really describe my first impression of Marco Paulselli, I think the best chance I have is to describe a particular photograph. In the photo, Marco stands with his childhood friend Andrew Lyle, happily in the kitchen of their multi-story Thames Street apartment. Perhaps some of you guys are familiar with the location. The two stand innocently, arm around one another. Marco's hair tightly pulled back in a sexy man bun. Lyle shirtless, showcasing a rather impressive physique and a head full of luscious, dirty blonde hair. Like I said 10 years ago. It's just a photo of two bros doing their thing. Until, upon further review, you recognize a plethora of kitchen knives stabbed into the cabinet doors in the background. I didn't know if Marco and his group of friends were a group of fun-loving guys or a safety hazard. They seemed like they might be a group of guys that would get kicked out of Benjamin's at 10:30 a.m. A little while later, Laurel came into the picture. I can't pinpoint precisely the moment I met Laurel, but I do remember the 404 Newport boys being quite concerned. A sassy young blonde girl had come to take their Marco Guy and turn him into Mark Paulselli. She was stern, very much into fashion, and would not put up with Marco's antics. It was bad news for the crew. Here I am about 10 years later, and I consider myself to be wildly fortunate to have gotten to know two special, kind-hearted people, and to consider them two of my best friends. Marco was one of the most enthusiastic and generous people I've ever met. He still rips his shirt off. But now I realize when he does so, it's to make us all laugh, or perhaps to give it to someone in need. He loves so very much to have fun, but I think he enjoys the fun of others even more, and I really admire that about him so much. And as for that young, small, sassy blonde girl who was into fashion and taking our friend Marco Guy away, during our friendship, I've seen her travel the country sleeping in the back of a Suburban, venturing out to an island in Maine and eating lobster off a giant dirty table mere feet from the sea. She's peaked multiple presidential mountains in a single weekend and almost never turns down an adventure. And she does all of those things while making sure that her friends and Marco truly appreciate all the opportunities that life has to offer. Simply put, Laurel rocks. Gladwell described first impressions as fragile, easily broken or destroyed. And in this case, he couldn't be more correct. Marco and Laurel bring so much joy into my life, and I'm willing to bet into the lives of everyone here. And for that, we are very lucky. I'd like to conclude tonight with a toast in a rather unique style. I'm going to ask for some crowd participation. Very simply, I ask you to respond vocally with unmitigated emotion to every statement I make. In layman's terms, whatever I say, you let me know how you feel. So as a quick example, if you were to go to a party with thousands of people and I said, there's only one bar. But it's a mile long! Beautiful. Here we go. So it turns out that our friend Marco is absolutely crazy. He's crazy for a living! And Laurel, I'm sorry, but I gotta say it, she's bad. She's a badass! She did steal our friend Marco guy. She stole his heart! And now, the two of them are stuck in this situation with no escape.